Hello and welcome to Stretford Paddock. My name is Joe and we are live in the studio today talking about Takeover latest. There has been an update for the first time in a long time about this takeover of Manchester United. We've heard Sheikh Jassim is still confident, and we'll be getting into more on that in just a few minutes as well. But it's the first time, like I said, that we've had an update on the takeover in weeks and weeks. So this is big. We also got an interview from Marcus Rashford talking about his goals at Manchester United and a little bit on Rasmus Haaland, when we can expect to finally see him play for Manchester United will all be coming up. But first of all, good morning everyone. We are back from America. It's only me in, to be honest. Steve's upstairs, actually, but Jay's not here. He's swanning about, typical. But we are back and we'll be covering, obviously, the stuff in Dublin. We'll be covering all the stuff from England and Old Trafford this weekend as well. But to everyone in America who is watching or has seen us and met us over the last couple of weeks, thank you so much. It's been phenomenal, but there's still plenty to do and there's still plenty of Manchester United news coming every single day. So let's get right into it. Morning, everyone in the comments. Morning, Dan. Morning, grumpy old fart. Good morning. Can Adam speak yet? Yeah, his voice came back later in the day, but you know, that's what it's like when you get out of bed and you start videos straight away in Las Vegas. If you haven't checked that out, make sure you check it out. We did a little tour review yesterday, the four of us, talking about what we'd seen and what we've been up to and what we've taken from Manchester United's tour so far. But I say so far because there's still games to go. We've got 2 games this weekend and one of them may be where we see Rasmus Haaland. But before that, let's get into this because there's been an article from the Daily Mail, Mike Keegan, and it's been a very long time since we've seen updates on this takeover situation. So for this article to come out last night hints that there is still confidence. And look at the size of the advert there. Bloody hell. Trains from Manchester to London, only 32 quid. I can tell you, that is a lie. I've never got the train from Manchester to London for any less than 75 quid. It is astonishing how expensive it is. So we can get rid of that advert if you can, please, producer Callum, because not only is it taking up half the screen, it's bullshit. There we go. Manchester United takeover discussions remain ongoing despite rumbling on for almost 9 months, with the Glazers continuing to talk to a number of parties. Again, this is Mike Keegan last night. Negotiations are currently taking place with multiple parties as the Manchester United takeover saga rumbles on. With the season rapidly approaching, concerns had been raised that a long-running process which started last November might be paused to allow the club's owners to reassess their options. That's what we've been hearing, isn't it? That's the rumours of the last few weeks, that actually everything's stopped. Sheikh Jassim hasn't heard anything, Jim Ratcliffe hasn't heard anything, the Glazers are getting cold feet about the whole situation, and maybe they don't want to sell. However, as we join back in with the article here, Mailsport understands that the current situation is that discussions are continuing with a number of groups with a view to a full sale or partial investment, which is obviously a great sign. The partial investment thing isn't great, but if we look between the lines here, basically, this hasn't stopped. This hasn't paused. Like I said, I think we're all getting nervous that actually the Glazers have gone with these reports, weren't they, that they didn't really get the money they wanted. They wanted 6 billion, they only got 5 billion. Actually, maybe they're pulling out. And luckily, it seems as though there is still movement here. The two front runners, to take over Manchester United are Qatar's Sheikh Jassim bin Hamad Al Thani and the British billionaire Sir Jim Ratcliffe. Both have lodged bids which value United at around £5 billion. While Sheikh Jassim is for a total buyout, the Ratcliffe proposal is for a staged takeover, which would allow members of the Glazer family to retain their interest for a set period. There remains confidence among some close to Sheikh Jassim bid that they will prevail. However, neither group is thought to have got close to the 6 billion that the Glazers are reportedly seeking. All very interesting. Again, this has raised the prospect that the Americans, deeply unpopular with large sections of United's fan base since their leveraged, debt-burdened takeover at Old Trafford in 2005, will instead take one of the offers from other investment groups for only a partial stake in the club. Sources have disclosed that discussions are taking place with multiple parties. Such a move would, in theory, provide funds to give United's home and training complex desperately needed refurbishments, and Mailsport can also disclose that architects who had previously worked on a range of plans for such upgrades, which included the building of a new stadium, have not been asked to draft new, scaled-down proposals. So I guess the inference there is that, they haven't reined this all back in. They haven't said this is off the table. the architects, the potential, I think it was master architects was the words that we were hearing, wasn't it? They haven't been told that this isn't happening, so maybe it still is. But I think, again, if we go back up, sorry to race you around the page there, Callum, but I think the crucial thing here is negotiations are currently taking place with multiple parties. The Mail Sport understands that the current situation is that discussions are continuing. It's the very top of the article. Are continuing with a number of groups with a view to a full sale or partial investment, which means that this isn't dead in the water that we were worried it might be. It doesn't, it's not a huge step forward, admittedly, but I think it almost felt like we were chatting to people in America. You speak to journalists, you speak to people who are, in contact with both sides, and what they've been saying up until recently, or up until this pretty much, is we haven't heard anything. No one's heard anything for a long time, and it seems as though now Mike Keegan for the Mail Online is saying that he has heard something, and that they are in continued conversations, that this is still ongoing. This hasn't stalled. It's stalled, but it certainly hasn't died the way that people were worried that it had, which is massive news because, like I said, I can't remember who it was we were speaking to now, and maybe it was off the record, so it's probably best that I don't say, but they were thinking that it might only be a sort of 40% chance that the club gets sold now, which is obviously not what anyone wants, or not what the vast majority of United fans want. So that is the news there. Crucially, the Glazers are still willing to sell, whether that be to Sheikh Jassim or to Sir Jim Ratcliffe, and as it says there, Sheikh Jassim still remains confident in his bid and in the bid of Qatar as well, which is massive because you would think that they wouldn't be particularly confident if they hadn't heard anything in 6 weeks, although it sounds like they actually have, which is absolutely fantastic news. Who's this? John Hemingway. Joe's forehead looks so much more tan than the rest of his face. How's that happened? Does it? Also, it's closer to the sun, so it would make sense, doesn't it, that would get more tanned. But I think we've just got a little light action here, a little bounce back piece, and then we've got some localised shading here. I think it's just the way the lights are. If I tilt my head back, look, you can see it's all relatively one colour. Not that I'm insecure about it. Right, let's move on to our second story of the day then. I'll come back to your comments in a minute, so get into those. And I will review and have a look back at what we're talking about with the Glazers in just a second. But before that, let's get on to Rasmus Haaland. And this is obviously Fabrizio Romano, as you can see there. Manchester United are aiming for the weekend to unveil Rasmus Haaland as a new signing. Visa and contract work being finalised. Club aiming for the weekend to seal and announce it. And that's what we're hearing as well, that we may well see him. I don't know if it's going to be quite like we saw with Varane, but a situation where he's perhaps being revealed at that game at Old Trafford at the weekend in one way, shape or form, which I think is just great for the fans in it. Especially, I don't know, we've obviously got 2 games in 2 days again. I don't know how they'll do it in terms of first team and second team, although there's a big difference in that the 2 games in 2 days that we had in America were in San Diego and Houston, which are about 1,000 miles apart. Maybe slightly more, 3-hour flight apart, whereas these 2 games in Manchester and Dublin are about 1 hour and 10 minutes apart. So feasibly, you could have 2 relatively strong teams. You could even have some people on the bench for one starting the other because the travel is nowhere near the same. But just based on how United have done things so far, I would be more confident in saying that you're going to probably have a first-string team and a second-string team playing those 2 games, or perhaps an amalgamation of the 2. But I'd be surprised if you see anyone playing both. Anyway, the point I'm trying to make is we will probably be seeing Haaland, I would guess, at the Old Trafford leg of that sort of double-headed fixture that we're seeing this weekend. And if that is to be the case, we'll of course be covering it on socials, and also we'll have the watch along. We've got Joe McGrath, we've got Jay Mottershead as well, and we've got another guest on that watch along, so make sure you watch that. But it's good that we're finally announcing Haaland, isn't it? I was hopeful that he might play this weekend, which if we're unveiling him, I doubt he's going to play, which is slightly frustrating because then it means that the only time, or his first game he's going to be available for, is the first game of the season. He won't have any pre-season at all, which is slightly frustrating, isn't it? it, that the main position United needed to sign someone in this summer was a striker, and the striker we've got, not only is he 20, not only is he relatively unproven, not only have we probably slightly overpaid, which I'm not using as a criticism of him, I'm just talking about the situation in general, he also now doesn't have a pre-season to embed and gel with the rest of the team, and it's not someone that we've seen with Anthony, that we've seen with Martinez, who has got experience playing under Ten Hag. It's a young lad who is coming into this group, coming into this manager fresh, and it may be it's just a slightly unnecessary hurdle, isn't it? He's already going to get, look, we've seen it, Sky Sports, Haaland versus Haaland. It's just because their names sound the same and they both got blonde hair and they're Scandinavian. They're not the same style of player whatsoever. They're not, the comparisons aren't fair. And also, I hate to say this, and it's not, have a go at Haaland time, but Haaland has been considered one of the brightest young talents in world football for 7 or 8 years now. He's been a physical and goal-scoring freak since he was about 14. Haaland is a very promising young player, but the comparisons aren't fair on anyone. So, yeah, but we're going to see a lot of that. And because he cost 60 million quid or 65 million quid, whatever it was, the expectations are going to be very high. And it's just a shame for him that he hasn't got the benefit of having a pre-season game or two to help soften that transition or smooth that transition from Atalanta to United. However, luckily, with Martial coming back to fitness, Rashford is fit, of course. Sancho's had a good pre-season. Anthony's back. Garnacho's fit. We can hopefully bring him in steadily rather than having to force him in if he's not ready. Let's get into some of the comments then. KFA Posse says, Joey's crying because his Spurs boy crush ain't coming. I haven't even mentioned... I assume you're talking about Harry Kane. I haven't even mentioned Harry Kane. And if I have, I forgot because I talk about him so much he don't even register anymore, so you might be right. Adam Kenny says they'll try and get certain players a trot out at Old Trafford. Correct. John Hemingway says, fair play, Joe, you're a legend. Top lad, thank you very much. Aaron Oudman says, Joe, how many goals do you think he'll score this season and what position will he predominantly play? Position-wise, number 9, down the middle is where he'll predominantly play. I think he can play off the left a little bit as well, but we've got 3 players who can play off the left in Garnacho, Rashford and Sancho, and we've got, Rashford can play down the middle, Sancho can play down the middle, but that's Haaland's position, I think, if he's fit. And how many goals do you think he'll score? Let's say he doesn't miss any significant period through injury, because obviously that changed everything. I think he'll get us 15 goals this season. And depending on how you place those goals, that could either feel like a good season or it could feel like a disappointing one. But I think if he gets the right 15, he could be very impactful with that. A couple of goals against some big teams, maybe some goals in some cups as well, and you could be looking at, maybe we wanted a bit more, but we're happy with what he did. I think just come in and get some goals. Come in and prove yourself to be worthy of starting for United. That's the first thing. He's a young lad. He's only just come out of his teen years. I think we need to temper our expectations slightly, but we make a lot of chances, and if he's a good finisher, he'll definitely get goals at Manchester United. With his pace as well, he'll be getting on the head of a lot of things, I'm sure. Let's talk about this Marcus Rashford situation. It's not even a situation, it's an interview. He spoke to Gary Neville for the overlap, and the Daily Mail have kind of collated a few of their quotes there. He's talking about the goal record. He said, hopefully I will break... he asked whether he thought he could break Rooney's goal record. He said, hopefully I will. He scored... Says he's got 123 goals in 359 games, which if he's scoring goals at that ratio, he basically needs to double what he's done already, doesn't he? Slightly more, which means he'd end up playing 800 games for United, there or thereabouts, 700 games for United to do it, which is a lot of games. I think that would probably put him at the 2nd or 3rd most appearances for United. I think probably behind Charlton and Giggs, wouldn't it? Let's have a look. Man United most appearances. Let's have a look here. Yeah, so you've got Ryan Giggs 9.63, Bobby Charlton 7.58, Paul Scholes 7.18. So you'd put him, he would be right up there with one of the highest, most appearances made for Manchester United if he's to continue scoring at his current rate. However, I suppose we can look at it and maybe think he might score at a slightly quicker rate over these next 3 or 4 years than he has done on average so far. If he can get another couple of 20-goal seasons, then that gap closes. But it's going to be one of those where he'd have to stay at United for his full career and he'd have to speed up his goal scoring a little bit. You realise, don't you, that how many goals Rooney scored for United? When you think he only played 559 games for United, which is 200 less than Charlton did. And he managed to get, a goal more or 2 goals more for United than Charlton did, which is just fantastic, obviously. But it'd be great to see Rashford do that. Again, mostly it's just a nice interview with Gary Neville, which is good to see. And I think I've been seeing a lot of stick for Rashford on social media. And he's not had a great pre-season. But we've got this new storyline where De Gea wasn't, De Gea's passing wasn't the issue. It's Rashford's controlling of the ball that's the issue. What are we on about? How do we know? How do you know this? Onana's going to be let down by Rashford. Shut up. Like, Rashford is a phenomenal player at receiving balls over the top or into space. We've always known that. That's always been the case with Rashford. And now all of a sudden we've got a goalkeeper that can maybe play those balls. And now Rashford's all of a sudden going to be shit at something that he's not shit at. Like, look at some of the goals that Lindelof's played over the top for Rashford. He's won penalties, he's scored goals. He scored so many goals from the ball being played over the top and in behind. And I think he's just such an easy person to beat because he's had bad season, or he's had a bad season, not even bad seasons. I stopped that before I said it. He's had a bad season once in his career for Man United because he wasn't a big transfer, because he's not this, sexy, world-renowned name that we bought in from somewhere like Real Madrid for loads of money, because he's an academy player. I think some people think you're allowed to slag Rashford off. It doesn't count. He's not cool enough. But look at the numbers he's put in. Look at the goals he scored. But, he doesn't do anything unless he's scoring goals. So what? Neither does Haaland. Neither does loads of the top players in Europe. Scoring goals is really the only thing that matters. If you score 30 goals a season, you don't have to do anything else. Like, what are we on about here? He gets 30 goals and 10 assists in a season, and we're stood there going, yeah, he's not good enough. I saw a video the other day. It was the club, which obviously, we're friends of the club, but we've got Rory Jennings and Boovy saying now Saka's a better player than Rashford because Rashford had some spells last season where he wasn't scoring a goal a game. Oh, sorry, what, like Saka's entire career he doesn't score a goal a game? At least Rashford had a spell where he did. Like, I just think that the conversation around Rashford, I think partly because he's never been a first-choice starter for England at a tournament, I think that tarnishes the view of him in a lot of non-United fans' eyes. They've not seen it with their, they see him when he plays against their team or on highlights, but a lot of English fans who aren't United fans haven't seen enough of him for England to know how good he is. He got 30 goals and 11 assists last season. Do you know how many other wingers in the world got that? One, I think. I think Mohamed Salah is the only other winger in the world that did that last season. And we're acting as though he's shit because he had a couple of bad touches in pre-season. Like, the slander that Rashford gets and all this stuff, now he's got a new contract now, so he's going to be crap. Shut up. Like, I think we're so lucky to have him. And the fact that he's playing off the wing with 4 out of the last 5 seasons, he's got 20 goals. And I think 10 assists. Certainly 3 of the last 4 seasons, excuse me. Most wingers aren't doing that. Like, it's just ridiculous. Anyway, thank you to Rashford. Thank you to everyone for watching at home. We'll be back later today. Me and Stephen Howson are going to be looking at Rasmus Haaland, exactly what he brings to Man United, how excited we are to finally have a number 9 that isn't a stopgap. We'll be back with that later this afternoon. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't already, and hit the notification bell as well, because that way, every time we go live, every time there's a new video, you will see it first. You don't want to miss out on any latest and breaking news for Manchester United, and we'll be here to cover all of that. Thank you for joining me, and we'll see you in a bit.